Masking. Masking allows you to paint on or select an area with this gray shaded area here that will hold down the parts of the geometry that are masked. So if I draw a mask, let's make a smaller selection. If I draw a mask here, and I'm currently in my move brush, if I move the mesh, the area that is masked is being held down by the mask. If I paint on a mask by just going directly on my model, I get the paint option for the mask. It's basically doing the same thing. So let me step back here. So masking is holding down Control and dragging out a box, in this case a marquee, because I have the marquee selection. You can hold down Control, drag a mask, and then Control tapping your pen outside of the mask to inverse the mask function. If I drag a marquee outside of the geometry, I will remove the mask. If I drag a mask over the object and holding down Control still, tap on the geometry, I can blur the mask. And then if I hold down Control and Alt and tap on the geometry, I can sharpen the mask. So Control with pen tapping on the geometry will blur. In that case, it blurred out to the point where it just removed it. Control, tapping on the geometry with the pen to blur. And then if I now add Control with Alt and tap, that'll sharpen. We can also just go over to the tool menu and open up masking and use some of the function here, like inverse, blur, and sharpen. But it's always easier as you're working to just do this stuff that right on the model. So Control, drag, pen tapping to blur, and with Alt, Control and Alt, I can pen tap and sharpen. I can drag a marquee outside to remove the mask, and if I make a selection and tap outside the geometry, I can inverse the mask. So we can do many things with the mask along with selection sets, which is polygroups. So I can Control and Shift and tap on the ear. I can mask that ear. I can show everything by holding down Control and Shift and tapping. And then inverse this mask, Control and inverse it here. And I can go and, like, let's say we want to scale up this ear. Let's get rid of symmetry. Hold down Alt to release the lock on this. And I can hold on Alt again to move this over. And I can scale up the ear if I want. So here you notice that the fall off isn't too good here. So I'm going to inverse the function of the mask and then Control and tap to blur it. And now I can Control and tap to inverse it again. And then here I can go and I can scale up the ear. So that looks pretty good right there. Masking. So there are other options for masking. You might want to go through them. I rarely use these other selection options. I mostly use polygrouping and then just freehand selection. And if I go over with Control to my brushes, I can also select a lasso. So I can select with lasso as well. So that's masking.